In this video, let us try to understand how to create a Power BI connection and what are the connection parameters required and where we can get them from. Moving on, I'll try to create a Power BI connection from top menu by selecting, I'll try to click on Power BI and this is Power BI connection screen, and let us understand all the parameters. Starting with connection name, it is related to BI Validator and it must be unique across all the connections which are saved inside the BI Validator. Moving on to application type. Application types are of two types. So one is user owns and other is application owns. So let's understand user owns. User owns is purely related to Power BI user, and in user own scenario we need user credentials, and in Power BI service, a particular Power BI user have like 10 workspaces, and those 10 workspaces can be seen by creating a user own connection. So let's try to understand user own scenario. It's purely related to Power BI user. In this scenario, user has to provide his credentials along with application ID. And what's the advantage is that all the workspaces which have been created or been shared in Power BI service account, it can be accessed in our test plan through this connection. Okay. Moving on to the login type. There are two types of login type. One is interactive and other is non-interactive. In interactive is that we really don't require a username and password to be saved in our repository. Only thing is that we, after entering the application ID, when user clicks on test or save, we just navigate to Microsoft login window, wherein user has to provide Power BI credentials, and from there we'll just take the login token and we save that token in our repository. So in detail, we don't require user and password to be saved in our repository in the interactive login, whereas in non-interactive login there are two other parameters, username and password. In this scenario, like user has to provide credentials along with application ID, and however the password which we store in our repository is in encrypted form. So the great advantage with non-interactive over interactive is that every time user may not need to enter the username password, whereas in interactive it's like the login token lasts for 90 days unless user changes password or reset password, anything like that related to user information. If user doesn't do any changes in password, then it will last for 90 days, and post 90 days it will again pop up the Microsoft login window, wherein again the user has to enter username and password, and then the login token will be taken, will be fetched and will store it in our repository, and it will again last for 90 days. In this way, we handle the interactive part without the username and password, whereas in non-interactive we'll directly use the username and password to get the access token along with application ID. So this is all about user own scenario. I will let you know further where we can get this application ID. Okay, moving on to the next type of application is application owns. It means that application is the owner. What it really means is there will be a master user who is Power BI user, and a master user creates an application, and there will be application secret in this kind of application in Azure Portal, and that secret will enact as username and password for a non-Power BI user. So the advantage over user own is that a non-Power BI user can also get access to Power BI reports with the help of application own type and application secret. And in this scenario, application secret is very confidential and in our repository we save it in encoded format only. Okay, so what is authentication type is like it's a service principal. It means that this service principal will enact as username and password thing with the help of application secret. Okay, and let's understand where we can um, let's let's get to know these three parameters and how we can get from. Now let's move on to application registration in Azure Portal. Okay, so this is the URL where we try to create the application. Okay, app.powerbi.com/apps. Okay, and I'll try to sign in. Okay, after that you have to register your application in Azure Portal. Okay, now I'll just enter the name for application. Okay, this must be native application, both for user owns and application owns. We need a native application. We even can use the same application for user owns and as well as application owns. I'll just show you how the difference comes. So I'm selecting all the permissions. These are like read permissions only. So I'm trying to select all the permissions and click on register. Now I got the application ID. I'll just copy it and I'll open the notepad. And this is the application ID. Alright, so click on close. Now what we do is we just go to Azure Portal. So this is my Azure Portal login. I'll go to application registrations and I'll try to find out the application which I have created from Power BI. So I'll go to all applications and it's like BI Validator API. Okay, so this is the application which I have created from Power BI, app.powerbi.com/apps. Alright, so now from overview we can find all the parameters which required in creating a connection, starting with application ID, and this is the tenant ID. Okay, so this is the overview screen. Now what we need to do is we need to generate an application secret for this registration. Okay, now I'll try to move to certificates and secrets from left menu. Here create a new client secret and you can give the expiry time over here. I'll just give it 1 year and click on add. As I have told you earlier that application secret is very confidential, so soon after creating the application only this value will be available to read or copy. After that it will just display it as in password format, like all asterisks. So we need to we need to save this soon after creation, otherwise we'll just lose that. Okay, I did that. Now moving on to tenant ID, I'll try to save this also. I'll try to copy this, and now I'm done with 3 parameters. But one thing is that we need certain permissions to access the API. Okay, now we have the all read permissions of Power BI service. We need a grant admin consent for this application to be accessed. So the grant consent is successful. After providing granting admin consent for this application, let's move on to Power BI application and see how we can use this as user owns and as well as application owns. First we'll try to create a connection of user owns. Okay, and I'll go with non-interactive, and I'll get the application ID from the notepad where we have saved all the 3 connection parameters, and now I'll just save it off. So the connection got successfully saved. This is user owns, and we'll try to create another connection for application owns also, and this is app owns and service principal, and we'll try to copy all these connection parameters over here. Application secret, and this is the tenant ID, and I'll try to save this. Okay, moving on, I'm trying to create a test plan for user own connection. So I have created a test plan from top menu, and I'll select the connection which I have created just now, connection BI Validator user owns, and click on save, and then move on to connection explorer. So this is user owns, right? So my username is pranita@datagapps.com, so I'll be getting that, and now I'm able to see all the workspaces which I have created or I have been shared with by someone else, all the workspaces over here. And let me select, I'll go with samples, reports, and I'll just drag and drop. So in this way, now we are able to establish a connection for user owns and a test plan by drag and drop of a report. Okay, now let's move on to application owns scenario. So this is a little bit different, as I've told earlier that only selected workspaces can be given access to a non-Power BI user through app own scenario connection. Okay, now as we know, the name of the BI application is BI Validator API. So now I have these workspaces with me. Now I want demo to be accessed by a non-Power BI user. So it means that I am trying to give access to demo through application own scenario to a non-Power BI user. So I'll go with now on demo, we on mouse overing we get 3 dots, and from here we need to go to workspace access. Okay, so over here we need to enter the application name. So as you can see, BI Validator API, which we have created just now, and I'll try to give it to admin and then click on add. So it gets add. I'll try to refresh once and show the exactly what it does. So now you can see that BI Validator API brace service principal. It means that this workspace is can be accessed by BI Validator API through service principal. So non-Power BI user is now able to access demo workspace. Now we'll go to the application and see how it does. Now I'll create a new Power BI report test plan with the connection of app owns and click on save. Alright, now move on to connection explorer. Now expand the BI connections tree. Now this is the application ID, and just expand it. So earlier I have added these samples and test samples. Along with that, now I have added a demo workspace into this application own register service principal. Now I am able to see all the reports which are underneath demo workspace. So this is how we generally use service principal. Only selected workspaces can be given access to a non-Power BI user through service principal, where service principal will enact as user and password thing. Okay, now for all these we need to do certain changes in admin portal of Power BI. I'll show you that also. So on the top menu we can see settings thing, and in settings again we have to go to settings and admin portal. Okay, so to enable all these service principal settings, we need to or turn on some settings in admin portal. I'll show you that. So now just navigate to tenant settings and move on to developer settings. So you can see the developer settings, and this is the second underneath the developer settings. The second point is allow service principals to use Power BI APIs. We have to enable this. Only after enabling this we can see the workspaces underneath the connection in BI Validator. It's not related to BI Validator, but it's just enabling the permission. We need to give this, and only then the workspaces can be seen through REST API. Okay, so now I have enabled and apply this. You can apply to the entire organization, that means datagaps.com, or you can create a certain group and you just enter the group over here. I have created Power BI apps, so I am not using that right now. So I'll go with the entire organization and click on apply. So only after doing this you will be able to access workspaces for application owned scenario. Okay, this is the one main thing we have to do. Okay, now we are done with the service principal thing also. Now let's move on to Power BI Embed. So this is the Power BI Embed service which we have created in our Azure portal. As you know, this is a capacity which we have purchased. Now let's understand what is Power BI Embed or Premium Embed. So Power BI Embed is used for mainly to export the report PDF. So if you want to if you are trying to export the report in PDF, then Power BI Embed should be enabled to that workspace and should be in start. Now let's understand what is Power BI Embedded. This embedded will enable user to export report into PDF. If, for example, if report has like 10 to 15 pages, this embed will export all those pages into the PDF, into a single PDF. Okay. Now let's move to the Power BI service. So now I'll show you where to add this Power BI embed data gaps. It means DG in our web service. So I'll go to admin portal. Okay, from settings. Now here we need to navigate to capacity settings. Okay. First thing is that I'm trying to link up the Power BI service with Power BI embedded. So for that we need to go to settings. From settings we need to navigate to admin portal and then to capacity settings. Now in capacity settings I'll go to Power BI embedded. All right. So as you can see that I've already added the same Power BI embed DG in my in admin portal to this account. So this way, set up a new Azure capacity. This way we should link up that. Okay. After this, now let's understand. After linking up this Azure capacity with service, now I'll move on to workspaces and how we can really turn on capacity for a particular workspace. So now I am taking test 1. I'll go to workspace settings, and here we can see about premium and Azure connections. Now I'll go to premium. Here you can see the premium capacity. Now it's off. It's turned off, and I'll try to turn it on and then click on save, and you can see this diamond symbol coming upon. It means that this test samples is on Azure Embed. Power BI Embedded. Okay, now this test samples, for this test samples workspace, we can download a PDF report for each report. Okay, there are like some possibilities that you really don't need PDF export, but still you can go with visual data. Okay, so now if like this is test samples. Now we assume that test samples and condition is like capacity is off, like turned off. In this scenario, if capacity is like off, we can neither in export PDF export will not work, as well as we cannot even get the visual list also. So this is the case with the workspaces which are on Azure capacity. Okay, if the capacity is turned off, we cannot retrieve visual list, PDF export, and anything will not happen. Literally, it will just display this message when we access this report through REST API by using BI Validator. Export cannot be done. Okay, now let's take samples. I'll just show you. So I have this workspace on service principal. So it may be like user owns or service principal. As it's not linked, it's not linked to embedded. So it means that PDF export is not possible. Okay, PDF export is not possible, but we can read, we can get a visual list and visual data. So these two variations are there in terms of capacity. Okay, only if a workspace is on capacity, it means that when the capacity is on, only then we can do the PDF export and visual list or visual data. If the capacity is paused, then we cannot do anything with that report. Only this message will just pop up and we cannot retrieve the visual list. Only thing is that we get the page list. Okay, now coming to user owns or service principal, so any of the application type, and consider a workspace which is not linked up to embedded, there PDF export is not possible, as it is not linked to, it is not on embed capacity. But what we can do is we can read the visual list and get the visual data and filters as well. Okay, so this is how it works. If the customer is not interested to purchase a capacity, we can just tell them that instead of without capacity also we can go with visual data and visual filters and visual list. Thank you.